السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام. Bismillah, we'll get started inshallah. I'll give a brief introduction because obviously we're starting this specific series after a big break. We actually started this November 2018, and then I thought that this is a good time for me to pick it up again and kind of go through everything and discuss this inshallah. So that's why we're starting this. This book, Al-Yawm al-Nabawi, is actually a work of Sheikh Tariri. It's a beautiful text, and it's one of the harder texts to deliver. The reason being is there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of love, there's a lot of muhabba in the way Sheikh Tariri writes this work. When we went for Hajj last year, subhanallah, the group that we went with, it was actually a group from London. So I tried to remain so nobody knows that otherwise they give you lectures and this and that. So when we went with this group, they asked for us to do a talk. And so then I thought, what should I do a talk on? And so this Al-Yawm al-Nabawi, I picked a chapter from there and I just read and translated it. And especially there, it's so effective. The way the book has been written, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so this is the text that we're going through, inshallah. We've done a big chunk of it anyway. But we're going to do the night of the Prophet ﷺ. So we even did after the Maghrib prayer, where we got to was the Isha prayer. And so that's what we'll be discussing, inshallah. That's what we're going to go through. And so I have the text in front of me, the Arabic text. And again, if you have questions, we can discuss them at the end. But let's get started with the text, inshallah. So again, this is the life of the Prophet ﷺ, how he would live his day. And so when you're listening to this, you have to focus. And you have to imagine you are with the Prophet ﷺ. The way he's written it is beautiful. It's beautiful. So you'll feel as though you're there. And so you really need to sit down attentively, focus, and think that you are with the Prophet ﷺ. And this is one of the ways that you can get a person finds hope in their life. Really sit down and focus and tell yourself that I am with the Prophet ﷺ. And so let's get started with the text, inshallah. We won't spend any more time. So Salatul Isha is the name of the chapter, which is the prayer of Isha. ويبقى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في بيته إلى أذان العشاء. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, after Maghrib, he's at his home, and he would remain in his house until the time for Isha would come. The adhan for Isha would be called the call to prayer. ولم يكن يعجل بصلاة العشاء, and he wouldn't read Salatul Isha quickly. وإنما ينتظر, he would wait. فإن رآهم اجتمعوا عجل. If he saw that the companions had gathered, then, unlike we discussed, that the salah times weren't fixed as such that, for example, 8 p.m. Isha salah will take place or 9 p.m. Isha salah would take place. It wasn't fixed in that sense. It was when the adhan is called, then people would gather. And so, وَإِنْ رَآهُمْ اجْتَمَعُوا عَجَّلَ. If the Prophet saw that the people have gathered, then he would pray quickly. وَإِنْ رَآهُمْ تَأَخَّرُوا. If he saw that the people are a little busy, they come a little late, أخر, he would wait a little while. وَكَانَ يُحِبُّ تَأْخِيرًا. But he preferred that he would delay the Isha salah. The Prophet would prefer the delaying of the Isha Salah. لولا خوف المشقة على الناس. The only reason he would sometimes not delay it too late is because he was worried about the people, that it would become too difficult for them. The Prophet ﷺ would always take into consideration people. And he would always take into consideration that I don't want to cause difficulty on the people. وَقَدْ أَخَّرَهَا مَرَّةً. One time, the Prophet ﷺ delayed the salah. فجاء عمر إليه. Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه comes فناداه, and he says, Ya Rasulullah, the Prophet ﷺ, he's calling, and the Prophet ﷺ is inside the house. So remember, the house of the Prophet ﷺ is literally next to the masjid. It's connected to the masjid. So Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه calls the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, Messenger of Allah, رقد النساء والولدان. And the women and children have started dozing off. Because the Isha Salah would take place late. And remember, in the Arab times, you'd wake up early and you'd start your working, etc. And so by the time the night would come, you'd be tired. You wouldn't have time to spend on your mobile for 3 hours. You'd be tired by now. So he said that the women and children are starting to doze off. They're so tired, And students of Darul Ulum will know this feeling. When you wake up for Fajr Salah and you're just waiting in the thing, and you're just like going, I'll tell you, and you'll know. Those people who attend Jum'ah, they attend Jum'ah, they've come from work, they've had a busy day or something like that, and they sat in Jum'ah, and it's like they're dozing off through the Jum'ah, and then they're pushing this person and that person, and you're tired. And so رقد النساء والولدان فخرج subhanallah. The Prophet ﷺ comes out ورأسه يقطر. There was water يعني coming down his face. And he'd just done a fresh wudu. وهو يمسح الماء عن شقه, and he was wiping the water with his hands. يعني وهو يمسح الماء عن شقه, from his side he was wiping the water. Fresh wudu. Can you imagine seeing the Prophet ﷺ coming out with a fresh wudu, ويقول إنه للوقت. Yes, now it's the time for Isha. يعني لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالصلاة هذه الساعة. If I didn't find it difficult, and if I wasn't worried that it would be difficult on my ummah, on my people, then I would have commanded them to pray salah at this time. So it seems from this hadith that the habit of the Prophet ﷺ wasn't to always pray Isha salah this late. But he did it this specific instance and said, yes, this is the time for Isha. But if I didn't worry about my ummah finding it difficult, then I would have prayed at this time. But normally he would pray it earlier than this. And so scholars mention that he made this specific instance the exception, because he wanted to show that delaying Isha is better. So now there's a small discussion which I can touch on, which it's not the objective, but we can discuss it. There's a question here that obviously scholars prefer to delay the Isha Salah, but then we have the question that why do some mosques bring it early on weekends? They bring it to 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m. in the winter months. What's the reasoning for this? So there's actually proof for this as well. You see, the Prophet ﷺ, there's two principles here. Number one is delaying the Isha, but number two is takthirul jama'ah. Takthirul jama'ah is this concept of making the jama'ah, the congregation, as big as you can. There's more reward in that. And so scholars have this discussion that yes, we want to delay the salah, but also there's a major reward in making the jama'ah bigger and facilitating for more people to attend the salah. And so that's why they bring it on weekends to 6:30. They think, looking at takfirul jama'ah, how can we get more people into the masjid? Well, on the weekend, if they pray the salah at 6:30, then they have the rest of the evening to go and do what they need to do or what they want to do. So that's the discussion there. So just in case somebody had the question that the Prophet ﷺ preferred it delayed, and in some mosques do this, don't worry. وَكَانَ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ وَسَلَّمَ أَخَفَّ النَّاسِ صَلَاةً فِي تَمَامٍ. The Prophet ﷺ would sometimes perform a brief prayer, but it was perfect. Yani one thing is you pray a short and rushed salah, but the Prophet ﷺ's salah, you wouldn't call it short and rushed, you'd call it short and sweet. Yani he would make it brief, but it was perfect. Yani he wouldn't leave anything out. He wouldn't miss any rukn out. And there's those people who pray quickly, but it's rushed. And there's those people who pray, but the qira'ah is perfect, the tajweed is perfect, the postures are perfect. That was the salah of the Prophet ﷺ. Sometimes when he would make it brief and he would make it quick, in these instances, he wouldn't make it rushed. They're trying to make a distinction that it wasn't a rushed salah. وقال أنس رضي الله تعالى عنه, Anas رضي الله تعالى mentions the hadith, you can find in Muslim Ahmad, it's in Muslim also, and Nasai also. Anas رضي الله تعالى mentions ما صليت وراء إمام قط أخف صلاة ولا أتم صلاة من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I have never prayed behind any imam a salah which is brief at the same time but also perfect. And nobody have I prayed behind an imam this kind of salah except the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, he would lengthen his salah at times and he would shorten his salah at times. He's saying that when he would shorten it, I haven't found a person who prays a shorter salah and yet a more perfect salah than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَكَانَ يَسْمَعُ بُكَاءَ الصَّبِي مَعَ أُمِّهِ. Regarding the prayer and the salah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, يَسْمَعُ بُكَاءَ الصَّبِي مَعَ أُمِّهِ. Sometimes he'd be in salah and he'd hear the crying of a baby. He'd hear the crying of a baby with its mother. وهو في الصلاة, and he was in salah. فيقرأ بالسورة القصيرة. He would pray a short surah. كراهية أن يشق على أمه, worried that it might cause anxiety to the mother. There's a scholar that I know, Sheikh Talha from Blackburn. He's one of the imams of the markaz there. He mentioned to me once, we were in a gathering, so he mentioned that he was imam for a number of years, I think 15 years or something like that. When he said this, might have been longer, Allah knows best. He said that it was only after like 10 years or something like this that I was able to act upon this hadith. And I waited 10 years for somebody to come, as I'm the imam, and somebody brings their baby and the baby starts crying in the back. And because of the baby crying, then I get to speed up my salah and I get to act upon the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. I waited 10 years for something like this. Something like this he mentioned to me. And there are people like this as well. That they're looking to fulfill the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But it also teaches you how considerate the Prophet ﷺ was. It's the actual hadith and the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, which is mentioned again in Musnad Ahmad and a number of other books as well. Imam Tirmidhi mentions it as well. Imam Bukhari mentions it as well. The actual wording is, إِنِّي لَأَدْخُلُ فِي الصَّلَاةِ. I enter into salah sometimes. أريد إطالتها, and I think, you know what, I'm going to make it long. فأسمع بكاء الصبي, I hear the crying of a little baby. فأتجوز في الصلاة, I then shorten the salah. مما أعلم من شدة وجد أمه من بكائه, because I know of the anxiety and the extreme anxiousness the mother will be going through because of the crying of her baby. And so we should, subhanAllah, look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ. This is why we should learn the life of the Prophet ﷺ. We should teach our children about the Prophet ﷺ. Ajib, you look at the qualities of the Prophet ﷺ, such consideration. He's in salah, in communication with Allah, but still there is some interaction taking place. Some interaction taking place with the people around him, consideration for them. And we have this assumption that the salah should be such, yes, they should be focused, the person should be focused, but also the Prophet ﷺ had an awareness of what was going on around him. فَإِذَا قَضَى صَلَاةُ الْعِشَاءِ تَحَدَّثَ إِلَىٰ أَصْحَابِهِ. When the Isha salah would finish, the Prophet ﷺ would sometimes speak to the companions. إِنْ كَانَ ثَمَّةَ عَارِضٌ يُرِيدُ أَن يُحَدِّثَهُم بِهِ. Sometimes if there was some matter to discuss, some sort of advice to give or something of this nature, he would speak with the companions and advise them. وَمِنْ ذَلك, and from this we understand أنه صلى ذات ليلة العشاء في آخر حياته. Near the end of his life, one night he prayed Isha Salah. فلما سلم, when he did the salam and he finished, قام فقال, he stood up and said, أرأيتكم ليلتكم هذه. It was near the end of his life and he said, أرأيتكم, do you guys see ليلتكم هذه, this night of yours? فإن على رأس 100 سنة منها لا يبقى ممن هو على ظهر الأرض أحد. He said, he prophesied, 100 years from today, none of you will be alive, or none on the face of this earth who are alive today will be alive. Many people, many scholars, when they discuss this hadith, they say that it's a prophecy of the Prophet, and it is. Of course, it's a prophecy, and he was very correct. The mu'arrikhun, the people of history, when they discuss this, they mention when the last companion passed away and all of this, and he passed away within these 100 years, etc. So yes, it's a prophecy, but it's also an advice to the companions. He's molding a mindset, something we can ask ourselves. 100 years from now, I won't exist. 100 years from now, chances are you won't exist. 100 years from now, none of us will exist. It really puts things into perspective and it really makes you think. I'm on this earth as though I'm going to be here forever. 100 years from now, nobody will take your name. Nobody will know you existed. Maybe as a grandparent, somebody might say that, oh yes, I had a Who remembers? Who remembers? Ask yourself, how many of your great grandparents do you mention ever, other than if it's a discussion of something like this? I think your name is forgotten. The good that you do is what remains. Really make this your mindset. Make this your focus in life. 100 years from now, what is your legacy? If you're a student, you're a scholar, you leave some books or you leave something, or Allah's given you money and you leave some sort of a charitable cause where people are getting water, or you build a masjid or something like this, that's what will benefit you. Really, that's what will benefit you. The Prophet ﷺ was making a mindset. 100 years from now, what have you prepared? What have you prepared? وأخر مرة صلاة العشاء. One time he delayed the صلاة العشاء. ثم صلى بأصحابه. And then he prayed the salah with the companions. ثم خطبهم. Then he turned to them and he said, فقال, ألا, listen carefully. إن الناس قد صلوا. It was late. The companions were tired. The Prophet ﷺ knows that they're tired. Sometimes you're just down and you've come to the masjid, you're not down. The Prophet ﷺ turned around and said, ألا, listen carefully. إن الناس قد صلوا ثم رقدوا. Everybody else has prayed their salah and they've gone to sleep. The people in the homes, they prayed their salah, they performed their salah, they've gone to sleep. وَإِنَّكُمْ لَمْ تَزَالُوا فِي صَلَاةٍ مَنْ تَظَرْتُمُ الصَّلَاةِ. You guys got the reward of salah for as long as you are waiting for salah. He's telling them that waiting for the imam, be patient and you'll get a reward for this. For as long as you're waiting for the imam, for as long as you're waiting for the salah to start, you're getting the reward of being in salah. You're getting the reward of being in salah. وأتم مرة بصلاة العشاء. One time the Salatul Isha was delayed. ثم خرج صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet came out of his home فصلى بهم and he performed the salah. فلما قضى صلاته قال, when the salah was finished, he said, لمن حضره, to those who were there, على رسلكم. Hang on a second, guys. Hang on. أبشروا, let me give you some glad tidings. إن من نعمة الله عليكم أنه ليس أحد من الناس يصلي هذه الساعة غيركم. Subhanallah, he said, إن من نعمة الله عليكم, from the blessings of Allah upon you, أنه ليس أحد من الناس, there's not a single person يصلي هذه الساعة, who's performing salah at this moment, غيركم, except you guys. فانقلب أصحابه إلى دورهم, the companions returned to their homes, إلى دور فرحين, ecstatic with joy, happy, ببشرى رسول الله لهم, with the glad tidings of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, listen to this carefully, he would always let people know their worth. He would always let them know, make them feel special. And I said this to the students recently in the Arabic class. I said, know your worth. Sheikh Zakaria rahmatullah alayh, once he addressed students and he said to them that he only said like one sentence. He said to them, apna maqam janno. Know your worth. Know what you are worth. That's all he said. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ would do. He would let them know that at this moment, there's nobody else who is involved in this. This specific statement, it reminds me, subhanAllah, after these Friday sessions, normally when we have these Friday sessions in the masjid and people would attend, after the Friday sessions, these Friday sessions would finish after an hour and a half. After that, there would be food, and we'd serve the chicken and chips, etc. So then we're looking at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Then the Arabic students would clean up and everything. And then we'd sit down after that as well, and we'd have another gathering. And that gathering would last till about 12 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 1 o'clock. And it was all the youngsters and stuff, they would stay behind. And subhanAllah, it was one of those gatherings that we'd leave the doors open downstairs. And sometimes at 11:30, a youngster would walk in knowing that these gatherings will be taking place. So sometimes 11:30, they'll text each other saying, hey, it's taking place. So they'll come. And people who are working at some of the restaurants close by, they would come as well, subhanAllah. And then so in one of these gatherings, I remember saying to them once, that subhanAllah, all of them youngsters, so I'd say to them that subhanAllah, look at the blessing of Allah on you. And this was the hadith in my mind. And look at the blessing of Allah on you on a Friday night, when youngsters will be here and there and in all these different places. Allah brings you to His house and makes you sit here. And subhanAllah, what a blessing of Allah. What a blessing of Allah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open up His house quickly, so we can all return to this, inshallah. Ameen, ameen. وَكَانَ حَدِيثُهُ بَعْدَ صَلَاةٍ. So this is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he would tell them that, look, this is your worth. And this is how Allah has blessed you. Everybody else is sleeping and you're worshipping. وَكَانَ حَدِيثُهُ بَعْدَ صَلَاةِ الْعِشَاءِ نَادِرًا وَقَصِيرًا. The Prophet ﷺ's speech after Isha Salah would usually be brief, and he wouldn't do it very often. لِتَعَبِ النَّاسِ, because the people would be tired, وَحَاجَتِهِمْ لِلنَّوْمِ, and people would want to sleep. Now this is contextual. This depends on the context. In the Arab context, because the Isha Salah was being performed quite late, you wouldn't have a session after Isha. Like imagine if the Isha Salah is at 11 p.m. or 10:30 or something like that. You're not going to have a lecture after that. You'd make it after Maghrib. You understand? It's all down to context. However, for example, when we have our Friday night sessions, sometimes we're going till 12, 1 in the morning. That's because obviously the youngsters, etc., they have a different sleep timetable. They wake up at like 4 in the afternoon. وَلِذَا كَانَ يَكْرَهُ الْحَدِيث بَعْدَهَا. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ disliked after Isha Salah, he didn't like people congregating and speaking and this and that. He preferred people to get to sleep. And there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ as well, لَا سَمَرَ بَعْدَ الْعِشَاءِ. Don't engage in futile discussions in the night. وكان إذا سلم مكث في مكانه. After he'd made the salam, he'd finished his salah, مكث في مكانه, he'd remain in his place. حتى ينصرف النساء, until the women, they left. Until the women left, because it was the men who would pray in front and the women would pray behind. Salah finishes, the women would leave immediately, and then the men would remain for a little while, and then the men would leave. فيدخلن بيوتهن من قبل أن ينصرف رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. The women would enter their homes before the Prophet would stand up and leave. فإذا قام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قام الرجال. When the Prophet would stand up to leave, the companions would say, can you imagine being Ajib, can you imagine being sat in the masjid? The salah is finished, and Allah knows best. The Prophet ﷺ preferred to pray sunnah and nawafil in the home, but if the Prophet ﷺ was reading 2 sunnah or something like that, I think you'd just be lost in your old world, just sat there watching the salah of the Prophet ﷺ, watching the greatest man to walk on this earth to perform salah. How blessed the companions were. And that's why the Sahaba have the rank they have. Sahaba comes from the word sohbah, and sohbah means companionship. And that's why they're not called they, so that they're called companions. Just having the companionship of the Prophet ﷺ elevates a person's rank to such a high status. And can you imagine watching the Prophet ﷺ? Yani you'd forget all your worries and everything that you have in life. You just be watching this great man performing his salah. Subhanallah. This is how lucky the companions were, and we can also be lucky like this. Don't wait for a dream or something like this of the Prophet. The Prophet came 1400 years ago to tell you what we need to do to be with him in Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability. That finishes the discussion between his Isha. Now the night of the Prophet. The night of the Prophet is in a number of chunks. So we're going to do the first chunk of the Prophet night first. So ثم يرجع إلى بيته, he'd return to his home, فيصلي ركعتين, and he would perform 2 rak'at راتبة العشاء, which are known as the راتبة العشاء. You can also call them the sunnah mu'akkada. So after your farad of Isha, you have 2 sunnah mu'akkada, which is the emphasized sunnah, or as the ratiba. The word ratiba means the regular sunnah of Isha, and those sunnah which are performed regularly after the Isha salah. ثم يجلس سويعة, he would sit for a little while, يتحدث مع أهله, and يؤانسهم. He would chill with his family. He would relax with his family. يؤانسهم, engage them in conversation. He'd spend quality time with them. ويسمر معهم قبل أن ينام. This was before everybody went to sleep. He would spend some time with the family. وربما ذهب يسمر عند بعض أصحابه. And sometimes he would spend some time with the companions. He would go and spend some time with the companions. فيسمر عند الأنصار في بعض الليالي. Some nights he would sit with the Ansar and give them advice and speak with them. ويسمر مع أبي بكر وعمر في بيت أبي بكر. Subhanallah. Sometimes in the house of Abu Bakr, he would sit with Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhuma. Can you imagine? Like, under that one roof, subhanallah, under that one roof, 3 of the greatest men to step foot on this earth having a conversation. And what must that imagine being an audience to that conversation? Inshallah, one day in Jannah we'll replay everything, and inshallah we'll get to see. But he would sit with Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, and he would speak with them in the home of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala. There's a hadith we covered, I think yesterday or the day before, in Musnad Ahmad. Musnad Ahmad is a famous work of hadith, and Ajib, the humility of Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he would say that sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would be speaking with Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and he would be speaking with us, and I would be with them. Yani he wouldn't say, oh, we were with the Prophet ﷺ. He would say they were talking and I was with them. Whereas the teacher of hadith, Sheikh Shabir, Mufti Shabir, he said that if it was us, we'd say, yes, I was with the teacher, yani I was with the sheikh, and but he used to say, no, they were talking and I was just with them. Yani the humility of Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he thought that they're the main people. I'm just I'm just lucky to be here, kind of thing. But the Prophet would be in discussion with Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. What were they discussing? فَيَتَحَدَّثُونَ فِي أَمْرِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. They would be discussing the affairs and the matters of the believers, and how they can assist, how they can cause benefit, how they can do this, and how they can propagate the deen. The Prophet would be giving them advice, and subhanallah, again, just imagine that. Imagine that company of the Prophet ﷺ, exclusive company of the Prophet ﷺ. فَإِذَا خَرَجَ سَارَ مَعَهُ يتمتعان بصحبته صلى الله عليه وسلم في الطريق حتى يدخل معه المسجد. الله أكبر. فإذا خرج, when the Prophet would leave the home, they wouldn't say سار معه, they would walk with the Prophet يعني in the night they would walk with the Prophet يتمتعان بصحبته, benefiting from his company. Can you imagine how amazing the Prophet must have been? And not only in his gatherings you can benefit from him, but when he's walking, when he's talking, when his interactions, you're still getting benefit from him. So they would want to walk with the Prophet on his way home, في الطريق حتى يدخل معه المسجد, and then they would enter into the masjid with the Prophet because the Prophet's house was next to the masjid, and so they would enter the masjid with the Prophet. وربما مر في طريقه بقارئ. Sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would be walking in the night, and they'd be walking and they'd hear somebody reciting Quran. حسن الصوت, beautiful voice, min ashabihi, from the companions. يقوم بالقرآن. Because in those days the houses weren't the way we have them. Even though the houses are the way we have them, if somebody's screaming and shouting in the house, you can hear it outside. And in our house, so much screaming and shouting takes place. And if my father's outside or mom's outside or something, they'll say that you can hear everything outside. So these houses, but in the houses of the companions, they weren't like this. You could hear things from inside and outside. And so, when the companions of the can you imagine how the Prophet must have felt? The companions are reading the Tahajjud Salah, the Qiyamul Layl, and they're reading the Quran in Salah. فيقف, the Prophet would stand outside, مستمعا لهذه القراءة الحسنة, listening to this beautiful qira'ah. Yani the Prophet listening to your qira'ah. Subhanallah. The person revelation comes down onto is listening to your own qira'ah. كما مر, and it comes in one of the narrations of Abu Musa al-Ashari, where the Prophet ﷺ passed by the house of Abu Musa al-Ashari laylatan one night, فوقف يستمع إليه, and the Prophet ﷺ waited by the door, listening attentively. فلما أصبح لقيه, when the morning came, subhanallah, there must have been the greatest morning of the life of Abu Musa al-Ashari when that morning occurred. فقال له, the Prophet said to Abu Musa, يا أبا موسى, O Abu Musa, لو رأيتني وأنا أستمع لقراءتك البارحة لقد أوتيت مزمارا من مزامير آل داود. لو رأيتني, oh Abu Musa, if only you had seen me last night. I was stood outside your door listening to your qira'ah. لقد أوتيت, you have been given مزمارا من مزامير آل داود, a sweet voice like the voice of Prophet Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, or the Prophet David alayhi salatu wasalam. Abu Musa al-Ashari must have been the greatest day of his life. And so sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would listen to the qira'ah taking place of the companions. ودخل, and when I remember reading this hadith, yani, when we studied this specific hadith, it comes in Bukhari. When we read this hadith, I used to think of my youth, when you used to come and go for madrasa. At that time, we never had a TV in our house, and so when you'd walk past, you'd kind of look through all the windows. You shouldn't do this, but when we were young, we'd look through all the windows and see what people are watching. And somebody would be watching football, somebody would be watching this, somebody would be watching this. So that's what we would see. But imagine in that time you'd be walking past and you'd hear somebody doing tilawatul Quran. So instead of standing outside watching TV, you'd be stood outside listening to the qira'ah. Subhanallah. ودخل المسجد ليلة. One night the Prophet entered the masjid. فإذا عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله تعالى عنه قائما يصلي. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud رضي الله تعالى عنه, a great companion of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, قائما يصلي, he was stood there performing salah. يرتل سورة النساء, he was reading Surah An-Nisa. Tartil, yurattil. He was reading it at a comfortable pace. فقام صلى الله عليه وسلم يستمع لقراءته. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم was standing and he was listening to his قراءة. ثم قال لأبي بكر وعمر. Of course, Abu Bakr and Umar were with them. Some of the companions would say that, كان Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم Abu Bakr wa Umar. كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أبو بكر وعمر. كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أبو بكر وعمر. And you'd always hear the narrations. When you'd hear the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم's name, you'd know Abu Bakr and Umar were with them. There are some people, and there's some scholars you'll know in this world as well, that when you say the scholar, you'll know that this person's definitely going to be with them. And so with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, it was Abu Bakr and Umar, Abu Bakr and Umar. من سره. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم has walked into the masjid. It's in the night. Ibn Mas'ud is performing salah, and the Prophet is with Abu Bakr and Umar. And the Prophet turns to Abu Bakr and Umar and says, "Man sarrahu an yaqra al-Quran ratban kama unzila." That person who wishes to read the Quran, the recitation of the Quran, that person who wishes to read the Quran ratban, fresh, kama unzila, exactly the way it was revealed, with perfection. فليقرأه على قراءة ابن أم عبد. Then let him recite the Quran on the qira'ah and the method of Ibn Abd. Ibn Abd was a loving name that the Prophet ﷺ gave to Ibn Mas'ud. And so he was referring to the qira'ah of Ibn Mas'ud, that if you want to read the Quran fresh the way it was revealed, listen to it from Ibn Abd, Ibn Mas'ud رضي الله تعالى عنه. فإذا دخل المسجد, so he enters the masjid. Now what does he do? سلم تسليما يسمع اليقظان. When he entered the masjid, he would give salam to the people of the masjid. It's the night, but there were people in the masjid. Why? Because in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, حيث لا يخلو المسجد من فقراء المسلمين الذين ينامون فيه. And the masjid would always have some people there, especially the poor believers. They would sleep in the masjid. Now, obviously, the question comes now that in this day and age, should we open the masjids for the poor people, etc.? Well, there's a context. In those days, what was in the masjid? Nothing. It was a place of performing prayer, etc. Now in the masjid, there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this risk and that risk. And so obviously that's why these discussions are slightly different. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the fuqara would sleep in the masjid. So when the Prophet ﷺ would enter the masjid, he would give salam. But what kind of salam would he give? يسمع اليقظان ولا يوقظ النائم. The one who was awake would hear the salam, and the one who was sleeping, he wouldn't hear the salam. And he would say it gently, not too loud that it disturbs the people sleeping, and not too quietly that the people who are awake can't hear it. adab, akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ. And when a person enters the house and is late at night, this is how they should enter the house. They shouldn't break into the house and screaming and shouting and this and that, like, oh yeah, I'm home, yeah, yeah, everybody wake up. And they shouldn't also just walk in and sneak in, that if somebody's waiting for them or something, like, they don't even know they walked in, and they give salam to the people of the home. Those who are awake should know, and those who are asleep, those who are asleep, and don't wake them. حيث لا يخلو المسجد من فقر ثم يصلي في المسجد قبل أن يدخل بيته. He would perform some salah in the masjid before he would enter his home. So again, in the night, in the night, the Prophet would go to his home. He would either spend it with his wives and speak with them and converse with them, or he would go and discuss with some of the Ansar and some of the companions, or he would go and have some specific discussions with Abu Bakr, Umar, etc. radiallahu anhuma. And then on his way back, he would either see some of these incidents, as has been mentioned in narrations, come to the masjid and perform 2 raka'at. And so that's why some scholars advise that for Isha Salah, the 2 raka'at prayed in the masjid, because of this specific thing, that when he would return, and you're not going to go home and then come back by the time the masjid is locked. So 2 rak'at in the masjid for this. Normally, the advice is your sunan nawafil, perform them at home. That's what the Prophet would do. If you know that you're going to get home and you're not going to perform your sunan nawafil, then obviously it's better for you to perform it in the masjid. فإذا دخل بيته, when he would enter his house, he'd enter home, وأراد أن ينام, and let's say he wanted to sleep, تخفف من ثيابه, then he would dress lightly. فأخذ خرقة, he would he had a piece of cloth, like a lungi, like we have lungis today, or like your ihram, your ihram, your lower garment, everybody will know that. So he would have a cloth of that size. أتوضع عند رأس فراشه, sorry, توضع عند رأس فراشه. This cloth would be lying at the head of his bed, and so that's where he would keep it. It was basically his pajamas. فاتزر بها, he would basically wear it. وخلع ثوبه فعلقهما ثوبيه. He would take his clothes off and hang them up. So فعلقهما is mentioned that he would hang his clothes up. وخلع ثوبيه, he would take both garments off, meaning he had an upper garment and he had a lower garment. So he's got this now izar on this lower garment. ثم دخل مع زوجته في لحافها, and he would enter into the bed covers with his wife. وكان فراشه من جلد. His bedding was made of a piece of hide. Yani the bed itself was made from a piece of hide. Hide is obviously animal skin of some sort, or some sort of a leather kind of skin. And hashwu leafun, it had been filled with a fiber of some sort. So maybe some sort of feathers or something like that is what they used to fill it with. So some sort of a fiber. And in other narrations, it's mentioned that when the Prophet would lie down on his bed and he got up, the marks would be visible of the bedding. And once, I think it was Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, one of the two, I think it was Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when the Prophet sat up and Umar radiallahu saw the markings on him, Umar radiallahu started crying. The Prophet said, why are you crying? He says that you are the messenger of, you're living in this kind of poverty, and Allah, the Prophet said, خلاص, khair, that's a hadith. وَلَهُ وِسَادَةٌ مِّن جِلْدٍ. The Prophet had a pillow min jildin, which also was made out of a hide. Hashuha leafun, and again it was filled with some sort of fibers. Yatawassaduha huwa wa zawjatuhu. He would rest on it with his wife. Yani they would share the same pillow. So they would both rest on this one pillow. فإذا أراد أن ينام, when the Prophet intended, and I remember in Abu Dawood, I think there's a narration, they would both sleep on it. And sometimes when I think one of the younger companions would come, I think it was Ibn Mas'ud, one of the relatives of the Prophet would come, Ibn Abbas possibly, and he would come and sleep with the Prophet in the house, and the Prophet with his wife would sleep next to each other, and then Ibn Abbas would sleep that way, and his head on the pillow but facing that way. And so that's how they would do. فإذا أراد أن ينام, when they wanted to go to sleep, وضع سواكه عند رأسه. He would place his miswak, the toothstick that you clean your mouth with, he would place it at his head, ليستاك به, so he can use the miswak, so he can clean his teeth, إذا استيقظ, or clean his mouth, إذا استيقظ, when he wakes up. وكان لا يرقد من ليل ولا نهار فيستيقظ إلا بدأ بالسواك. When he used to go to sleep, either in the day or in the night, so obviously they used to have what's known as the qaylula, or the siesta, which is the afternoon nap. It's common in Arab countries even today. And so when he used to either sleep at that time or even in the night, he would not get up without doing his miswak. The siwak was something important to him because it was hygiene. The Prophet was big on hygiene. وَكَانَ إِذَا اسْتَاكَ أَعْطَى سِوَاكَهُ عَيْشَةَ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَنْهَا. When he would finish his miswak and cleaning his teeth, أَعْطَى سِوَاكَهُ عَيْشَةَ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى لِتَغْسِلَهَا, so that she would wash it. Now, subhanallah, many people will read this and think, see, what's this? Why is he giving it to Aisha to wash? And what kind of attitude is this? And so, people will start, but you have to understand how the Prophet ﷺ was. And the Prophet ﷺ knew Aisha radiallahu ta'ala wanted it. Why? فَتَبْدَأُ بِهِ فَتَسْتَاكُ. It's mentioned that she wouldn't wash it. فَتَبْدَأُ بِهِ. She would quickly use the miswak herself. She would use it herself. فَتَسْتَاكُ لِتُصِيبَ أَثَرَ رِيقُهُ الطَّيِّبَ الْمُبَارَكِ. So she could mix her saliva with the blessed saliva of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You want to learn romance? Come on, look at the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah. And so the Prophet is not going to say benefit from my saliva. That whenever he would put it down, he would know that Aisha radiallahu ta'ala would instantly take it, and so he would give it to her with the excuse that she washed it. But he knew that she wanted to benefit from it. ثم تغسله. Then she would wash it. وتدفع إليه. And then she would return it back to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. فكان سواكه نظيفا وقريبا منه. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم's miswak was always kept clean and it was kept close to him. يتعاهد به فمه الطيب المطيب تعاهدا شديدا. He would use the miswak very, very often. If you remember in the early sessions that we've done, I think it was session 1 most probably, which starts with the morning of the Prophet ﷺ when he wakes up for Fajr. We discussed the ahadith on the miswak and the siwak, so you can check them out. The playlist is present anyway. But this is obviously the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك. If I was not worried upon my ummah, I didn't want to make it difficult on my ummah, لأمرتهم بالسواك عند كل صلاة كما يتوضؤون. I would have made the miswak, the toothpick, the cleaning with the toothpick, compulsory on them for every salah, just as they have to make wudu for every single salah. But the Prophet didn't. وكأن ذلك ليطيب فمه الذي يناجي به ملائكة ربه. It seems as though that the Prophet ﷺ would ensure his mouth was clean and he had the highest level of hygiene because of the interactions that he would have and the conversations he would have with the angels that would come from Allah, specifically Jibreel that would come with revelation. كما كان ينحي عنه البقول والخضرات ذوات الرائحة. And it's exactly the same way he would avoid those vegetables and those that had an intense smell, onions, garlic, all of these things, those roots, etc., that had a strong smell. He would avoid them and he would say ليس بمحرم. They're not haram. I'm not saying they're haram. They're not haram. They're not impermissible. ولكني أستحي من ملائكة الله. However, I'm shy from hurting and offending the angels that come from Allah. إني أناجي من لا تناجي. I speak with those individuals and I communicate with those that you do not communicate with, referring to the angels. And so this is one of the reasons the Prophet ﷺ would keep his mouth and himself as a person very hygienic and clean, because he would have to interact with angels. وَلِذَا حَافَظَ عَلَى السِّوَاكِ. And for this reason we find that he was punctual and consistent with the miswak. فيبدأ به كلما استيقظ. Whenever he would wake up, he would use it. ويقربه عند رأسه إذا أراد أن ينام. And when he was ready to go to sleep, he would make sure it was close to his head. It was accessible basically. وإذا آوى إلى فراشه. When he would come to bed, قال الحمد لله. He would say these du'as now. So some of these du'as again, we have a list of them prepared as well, and these will also add to that list, and inshallah I'll share these with everybody inshallah. But alhamdulillah alladhi at'amana wa saqana. Alhamdulillah, all praise belongs to Allah, alladhi, the one who at'amana, who gave us food to drink, wa saqana, and he gave us he gave us food to eat, and he gave us drink to drink basically. Wa saqana, he didn't keep us thirsty. That might be a good translation. وَكَفَانَا وَآوَانَا. Allah gave فَكَمْ مِمَّنْ لَا كَافِيَ لَهُ وَلَا مُؤْوِيٍ. And he gave us protection. He's been kind to me. فَكَمْ مِمَّنْ لَا كَافِيَ لَهُ وَلَا مُؤْوِي. How many people there are that there's no protector for them, nobody to take care of them. Alhamdulillah الذي مَنَّ عَلَيَّ فَأَفْضَلَ. All praise belongs to Allah, the one who مَنَّ عَلَيَّ. He's been gracious to me. فَأَفْضَلَ. And he's given me in excessive amounts, lavishly. He's not been stingy. Allah's never been stingy with us. Allah's always given us. وَالَّذِي أَعْطَانِي فَأَجْزَلَ. Allah is the one. Who is Allah? Allah is the one. أعطاني, who has given me. فأجزل, and He's given in plenty. Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. All praise belongs to Allah ala kulli hal, in all circumstances. Allahumma rabba kulli shay. O Allah, the Lord of everything. وَمَالِكَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. And the King of everything. لَكَ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ. For you belongs everything. أعوذ بك من النار. Oh Allah, protect me from the fire. So the Prophet ﷺ would end his day with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But listen, it's not, see, the thing is, we have to understand what these du'as are saying. These du'as, listen to one word which is consistent throughout. Alhamdulillahi alladhi, Alhamdulillahi alladhi at'amana, Alhamdulillahi alladhi manna alayya, Alhamdulillahi ala kulli hal. What's he saying? I thank you, Allah. I thank you, Allah. Gratitude. End your day, sit down in your bed, end your day, and think about what Allah has given you. Let your day end on a positive note. Don't end your day saying, "Oh, I wish I had this," and end it on a positive note. Allah gave me this, Allah gave me this, Allah gave me this. Allah, you're so kind, you own every single thing, and Allah, yet you're giving me beyond what I deserve. Positivity. Positivity is what the Prophet ﷺ is teaching, and end your day with seeking protection from the fire. It's mindset preparing that, oh, there's a fire, which means I need to make sure that my life is spent in such a way that I'm not offending people, I'm not hurting people, I'm not destroying the commands of Allah. So mindset. This is one of the du'as of the Prophet before going to sleep. ثم يجمع كفيه المباركتين. And the Prophet would gather his two blessed hands, فينفث فيهما, and he would blow in them. Some scholars say his blowing was like this. Some scholars say it was blowing with a light spitter, like that. So فينفث فيهما, he would blow in them. ويقرأ, and he would read قل هو الله أحد, the entire surah. الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد, سورة الإخلاص, سورة الفلق, which is قل أعوذ برب الفلق, and قل أعوذ برب الناس. He would read these, and then he would read these, then ثم يمسح بها رأسه, he would then wipe his head, ووجهه, his face, وما أقبل من جسده ثلاث مرات, and whatever he could reach in his body. So he would read them 3 times. According to scholars, he would read it 3 times. That's the hadith. He would read it 3 times. So, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ 3 times, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِالْفَلَقِ 3 times, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِالنَّاسِ 3 times, and then he would wipe it. Now, the order some scholars have discussed is the other way around. So, some scholars have said, read it 3 times, Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, then blow. And then do the wiping over your whole body wherever you can reach, and khalas. Don't be excessive and it's like start rubbing every single part and making sure between your toes and everything. And it was more a case of again, it's seeking protection from Allah, but it's also to give you this kind of this physical action gives you this kind of sukoon that I'm in the protection of Allah now. Khalas. Physically, mentally, you're ready. You're ready to go to sleep, inshallah. And so this helps. This really helps. And so a person should do this. So some scholars say blow first, because the hadith explicitly mentions he used to blow first. And so I advise this specific version, but scholars have mentioned both. I advise blow, then read the surah. And it might not make sense to us, but it's what the Prophet ﷺ did. And so we do it. We do it. Of course we do it. فَإِذَا اتَّجَعَ عَلَى شِقِّهِ الْأَيْمَنِ, when he would lie down and he would rest, he would rest عَلى شِقِّهِ الْأَيْمَنِ, on his right side. So, وَوَضَعَ يَدَهُ تَحْتَ خَدِّهِ, and he would place his hand under his cheek. Now, people say that I go to sleep on the right side, and then within a minute or so, I'm unable to sleep on the right side, so I have to turn sides and this and that. Start with the sunnah side. Start with the right side. If you're uncomfortable and you change. Don't force yourself to sleep on the right side. Start your sleep like that. Then if you have to turn to your left, you turn to your left. You come back to your right, turn to your left. People twist and turn in bed. That's fine. But start like this. Start on the right side. وقال, and he would say, Allahumma bismika ahya wa bismika amutu. Allahumma qini adabaka yawma tub'athu ibadak. There's different versions of the dua. You might have heard Allahumma bismika amutu wa ahya. That's fine. This specific version, Allahumma bismika ahya. A specific version is found in Bukhari, Muslim, Ahmad, etc., with different wordings. Allahumma, O Allah, bismika ahya. With your name, and with your permission do I live. Wa bismika amut. And with your permission, with your name do I die. Allah, and what's this saying? What's he saying? It's to give you this understanding that life, the going to sleep and rising up again is like a small resurrection. Allah is reminding you that one day you will enter the grave, and then you will stand up from this grave once more. The sleep is like, it's the sister of death. You're going to go to sleep. You don't know if you're going to get back up. And so Allah, with your name do I go to sleep. With your name do I die. And when I get back up, Allah, you can bring me back to life. That's what you've done. That's like a resurrection. It's a new day. And also mentally, this getting up, it's a fresh day. It's now you being reborn, resurrected once more. Fresh start. Start fresh. Set your targets and go fresh. And the mindset that is being built, subhanAllah, if a person understands the sunnah du'as, this is just some of the du'as. Imagine the du'as of the Prophet ﷺ, how beneficial they are mentally to keep you in a positive state and to kind of drive you forwards and to make you into a productive person. Allahumma bismika ahya. Allah, with your name do I live. Wa bismika amut, and with your name do I die. Allahumma qini, oh Allah, qini, protect me, adabaka, from your punishment. Yawma tub'athu ibadak, the day that your servants and your bondsmen and your slaves will be brought back to life and you will be resurrected. Again, why are we remembering death before going to sleep? Why are we remembering the punishment? Because you need to make sure that you make tawbah, you make istighfar, and you're going to sleep with a clean heart. A clean heart. This is so important. Every night, make sure you sleep with a clean heart. And you forgive everybody, go to sleep with a clean heart. And that doesn't mean that before you go to sleep, you make a clean heart. When you wake up, all the grudges, I say again, again. No, no. Khalas, every night you forgive everybody for anything they might have done, end all grudges and have a fresh start. And when you wake up in the morning, if you've had a disagreement, an argument with somebody in the night, and then you wake up and now you've got to force yourself to keep this face in the morning, all should be forgiven and forgotten. You should try and move on. Yes, unless it's something ridiculous or something that's different. But generally speaking, try and clean your heart. It's for your own good. Forget the other individual. It's for your own benefit. It's for your own sanity. وله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أذكار يقولها عند نومه. The Prophet had specific أذكار that he would recite before going to sleep. اللهم رب السماوات ورب الأرض. O Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the Lord of the earth. ورب العرش العظيم, and the Lord of the mighty throne. وربنا, our Lord. ورب كل شيء, and the Lord of every single thing. فالك الحب والنوى, the one who tears الحب والنوى, he splits the seed and the grain. And when you plant a seed into the ground, somebody has to split that seed. And subhanallah, when you think about it, try splitting the seed with your hand is difficult. But you put it in the earth, and subhanallah, the way Allah makes it split is something from within grows and it cracks open. And then many scholars have discussed this faliqul habbi wan nawa and given so many indications. And sometimes, so for example, in our life, sometimes we have ups and downs, right? And so they give the example of the seed. They say that you have to bury the seed under the ground before it can come out and benefit the world. You understand? Sometimes you have to be buried deep under and you have to go through difficulties. But through these difficulties, you will learn valuable lessons which will allow you to come out and benefit the ummah, benefit people. Think about the seed. Think about the seed. If it resists and says, I don't want to go in the ground, I don't want to go, I'm not going to go in the ground, it's not going to split open. Yeah, it can stick it in water or this or that, but and he's sticking it in the ground is the natural way for it to go, and then it comes out and it becomes a little shoot, and then it grows into this and that, and then it becomes a flower and it grows in, and it can become a tree which gives fruit and shade and all of these other benefits. And trees are such that they give oxygen. Everybody benefits from it. It gives life. Subhanallah, it gives life, it gives food, it gives sustenance, it gives everything, it gives shade. The three main things that you need in life is shelter, is food, and is to be able to live, to breathe. It gives you oxygen, it gives you shelter, and it gives you shade, and you can obviously use the wood for that, and also food. Subhanallah, how amazing it is. But again, فَانِقَ الْحَبِّ وَالنَّوَى, when you're saying this and you're about to go to sleep, and you're saying فَانِقَ الْحَبِّ وَالنَّوَى, oh Allah, you are the one who splits the seed and the grain. You're thinking to yourself, subhanallah, how powerful Allah is, that from something this small, He creates something of so much benefit. Never underestimate what Allah can do. If He can do this with inanimate objects, what can He do with you and me? What can He do with individuals? Allah can bring us from nothing and make us something. Shaykh Yunus, rahmatullah alayhi, a great muhaddith, one of the greatest muhaddith I have set eyes on, personally. Um, and one of the ways you can tell how great a scholar is you look at the level of their students, you look at the books that they've written, you look at the benefit that they've caused to people. Shaykh Yunus rahmatullah alayhi, Arabs, non-Arabs, they loved him. One of the things Shaykh Yunus rahmatullah alayhi would say, and when we sat with him, and he was a muhaddith, a scholar of hadith, of another level, and ajib. He would just be sat there and he would just start crying, and he would say things like, yani, who was I? What was I? I was a young boy who was in the jihad in the villages, and I used to look after sheep, and I was people would give me these kind of jobs. I never had a hat on my head, I never had slippers on my feet, but look where Allah has put me now. Look where Allah, and he wouldn't say it out of fakhr and pride and arrogance. He would say it out of appreciation that what was I? What What am I able to do? What are we worth really? What is our worth? But he would cry and he would say that look where Allah has placed us because of this knowledge, because of this religion. He's passed away. He passed away 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think. He passed away 3 years ago. Still mentioned today, still remembered today. And the books that he's written and the benefit that people are still gaining from him. One of the last lectures of hadith he did was to our class, our bunch of students. I was very fortunate. When he came, the year he did his final lectures of Bukhari, and then he went back to India, and then he passed away when he was there. So we were very fortunate to have the final lecture from him. But these kind of individuals. And so this is what makes you think when you think of Fahliqul Habbi wal Nawa. Allah wants you to ponder upon these du'as. Listen, these are the du'as of the greatest man, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And his words were wahi. There's something about these. I'm telling you, it's worth sitting and studying just the du'as of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, going into detail of the du'as of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. وَمُنزِلَ التَّوْرَاةِ وَالْإِنْجِيلِ وَالْفُرْقَانِ. You're talking to Allah and saying, oh Allah, the one who has revealed the Torah, wal-Injil, the Gospels, wal-Furqan, and the Quran. Furqan is a title given to the Quran. Furqan in Arabic literally means something which distinguishes. Faraqa means to distinguish. So the Quran is something which distinguishes between al-haq wal-batil, between the right and the wrong. And so that's why they call the Quran al-Furqan. That's another name for it. It distinguishes between right and wrong. And so that's the Quran. A'udhu bika, oh Allah, I seek protection. After all this praise, what the Prophet ﷺ is going to be seeking protection from must be something serious. أعوذ بك من شر كل ذي شر. I seek protection from every atom. شر كل ذي شر. Every atom that can cause harm. I seek protection from every atom that can cause harm. أنت آخذ بناصيته. Wallah, you are the one who will grip from the frontal lobe. What does that mean? أنت آخذ بناصيته. It's referring to a verse of the Quran. Allah is referring to the people of the hellfire. And it says, كَلَّا لَإِن لَمْ يَنْتَهِ, that if they do not yanta, if they do not desist, if they continue sinning, لَنَسْفَعًا بِالنَّاسِيَةِ, we will grip them from their nasiyah, which is the frontal lobe, which is the front of the head. Scholars have discussed, what is this random, what's Allah referring to? Why is he going to grip them? Grip them from the ear, or grip them from the neck, or grip them from the neck, throat, or this or that. But he grips them from the frontal lobe. How do you grip somebody from this? Or what's the objective of this? Subhanallah. Scholars have discussed this, and one of the amazing things that recently scholars have discussed, the frontal lobe of the brain is known to be the part of the brain where one makes their choices. One's ability to think and one's ability to make choices. You have Google, just Google it. What's the frontal lobe do? The frontal lobe it gives a person the ability to think and to make choices. It's integral in somebody's decision making and somebody's self control is here. Now, how do we know this? How do we know this? Well, science from the research, for example, I'll explain to you. When somebody has an injury or an accident of some sort, they can do an x-ray and they can see what part of the brain has been damaged. And based off that damage, they see what changes have come in the person's behavior. And so those changes will tell you, oh, so if you affect the frontal lobe, then he loses the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. If he loses this side or this side or this part or this part. And so with x-rays and scans and all of these, you can determine what part of the brain is doing what, roughly. And so they say that the frontal lobe is known to impair one's ability to think and make choices. And so subhanallah, Allah is saying, and when I grip you, I will grip you from that place that made the decisions for you to do right and wrong. And that place which you could have built and made to have your self-control, etc., was this bit. And so you're making dua to Allah, Anta akhidun binasiyatih. And so from this hadith, this dua, you can probably even understand the deeper thingy that Anta akhidun binasiyatih. When you say you're going to grip from my frontal lobe, what you're actually saying is I will grip you as a result of your own deeds. Because your frontal lobe decides what you do right and wrong, and you made these decisions. Allah will grip you as a result of your deeds. Allahumma anta al-awwal. Oh Allah, you are the first. فَلَيْسَ قَبْلَكَ شَيْءٍ. There's nothing before you. وَأَنْتَ الْآخِرُ. You are the final. You are the last. فَلَيْسَ بَعْدَكَ شَيْءٍ. Everything is in between you. Everything's in your control. وَأَنْتَ الظَّاهِرُ. Oh Allah, you are the apparent. فَلَيْسَ فَوْقَكَ شَيْءٍ. There's nothing that's above you in any way. وَأَنْتَ الْبَاطِنُ. And you are the internal also. You are apparent and you are internal. فَلَيْسَ دُونَكَ شَيْءٍ. There's nothing even close to you. Subhanallah. What do scholars say about this? Al-awwal wal-akhir. First and last. So Allah, you are in control of time, first and last. And zahir and batin, external, internal. What's external, internal? It's space. It's space. We exist in space, you are internal or external. So I think anta zahir wal batin, you are external, you are the internal. Yani what does that mean? You are the master of space. You are the master of all time and all space. That's what it's referring to. Until awal, until akhir, until zahir, until batin. You are in control of time and space. And Allah, you control everything. I'm going to sleep right now. Allah, I sleep with the confidence knowing that you control everything. اقضي عنا الدين. Remove from my life any of my debts. وأغننا من الفقر. And save me from poverty. Save me from poverty. Subhanallah. This must be a serious thing for the Prophet to be making dua for this. Save you from poverty. And poverty is something which just constantly, it just burns away at a person. It's constantly a pressure on a person. Genuine poverty. Genuine poverty. And debts. Youngsters especially, avoid getting into debts. Credit card shouldn't be a thing in your life, unless obviously for business reasons, there's different reasons. But especially at this stage, spend what you have. Budget yourself and spend what you have. Don't spend what you might have or what you will have or what you could have, etc. Be smart. Be smart. Don't put yourself in a position where you regret it later on. You have difficulty borrowing money. Be hesitant in borrowing money. Make your lifestyle such that you don't have to borrow money. There are times when you'll have to, but I'm saying that learn to manage money. Learn and take courses if you have to. Learn how to manage your money. Take courses if you have to. And our parents, especially when they first came to this country, how careful were they with the money? And they would go to 3, 4, 5 shops before buying something. They'd check everything, and then they'd buy something. And we, Amazon, the first thing, the convenience, we'll buy it. Khair Allah, if Allah's given you, Allah's given us, alhamdulillah. But especially youngsters, students especially, be careful. We're concluding inshallah soon. We'll just finish with some of these du'as of the Prophet ﷺ, and we'll conclude with the night of the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah, soon inshallah. Give it another maybe 10 minutes or something. So, Bismillahi wada'tu jambi, another dua of the Prophet ﷺ, that, oh Allah, I rest. Allahumma, with your name, I'm resting. Allahumma ghfirli dhanbi, Allah forgive my sins. Wakhsa shaytani, drive away my devil, drive away the shaitan that's with me. Wa fukka rihani, and oh Allah, free me from my restrictions. Those things which are restricting me, those are burdens. Fukka, free me from rihani, from my restrictions. وَثَقِّلْ مِيزَانِ, and make my deeds, the scale of my deeds, heavy, O Allah. Thinking about the hereafter. You're going to sleep and you're thinking, وَثَقِّلْ مِيزَانِ, make my book of deeds heavy. If my scales are going to be heavy, that means they're going to be filled with actions. If they're filled with actions, then I need to do actions. I need to do good deeds. Mindset. وَجَعَلْنِي فِي النَّدِيِّ الْأَعْلَى, and Allah, make me on the day of judgment amongst the most noble of gatherings. Allahumma aslamtu nafsi ilayk. Oh Allah, I surrender myself to you entirely. I surrender myself to you. وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِي إِلَيْكَ, and I've turned my face to you, Allah. وَفَوَّضْتُ أَمْرِي إِلَيْكَ, I entrust all my affairs to you. وَأَلْجَأْتُ ظَهْرِي إِلَيْكَ, the literal translation of this is, Allah, I've given you my back. I've placed my back. Allah, I'm requesting your protection. Allah, you've got my back. Allah, please cover my back. Watch my back. رَغْبَةً وَرَحْبَةً إِلَيْكَ. All of this, Allah, I do in hope and in fear of you. لا ملجأ ولا منجا منك إلا إليك. There is no refuge and escape from you except in you. The scholars once asked, فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ, run from Allah. فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ, run to Allah. Allah mentions the Quran, فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ, run to Allah. So they asked that, who are we running from? What are we running from? So he replied, فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ, run to Allah from Allah. What does this mean? If there's somebody who's got a bow and arrow, an archer or something like that, and they're shooting the arrows, where's the safest place? In front? Run to them and stand next to them. Be on their side. And if there's this punishment coming your way, become friends with the person. فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ, run to Allah. From who? From Allah. And the punishment of Allah, run from the punishment of Allah into the mercy of Allah, into the compassion of Allah, into the love of Allah. آمَنْتُ بِكِتَابِكَ الَّذِي أَنزَلْتَ, I bring faith and believe in the book that you have sent to Allah. وَبِنَبِيِّكَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلْتَ, and in the prophet that you have sent to Allah. وَرُبَّمَا قَرَأَ سُورَةً مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ, in the night, the Prophet sometimes would read some verses of the Quran. فَيَقْرَأُ أَحْيَانًا, sometimes you read Alif Lam Mim Tanzil, the Surah Al-Sajda. Sometimes you read هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ حِينٌ, the Surah Al-Zumar, Surah Al-Isra, etc. You read different surahs in the night. ثم يؤانس زوجته بالحديث معها سويعة. For a short while he would spend some time uh, having a conversation with his wife. ولك أن تتخيل هذه النجوى بين زوج كريم محب. Can you imagine the conversation, how it must have been, this beautiful conversation between a noble and a loving husband وزوجة محبة مشوقة في هدأة الليل, and a wife who is loving and caring also in the depths of the night. والسكون المدينة الجميل, and in the peace and serenity of this beautiful city مدينة المنورة. إنها عطاء وجداني. It must have been a deep conversation يفيض على النفس بأنواع المسرة والإبهاج, which must have filled the heart with happiness and bliss. ويعطي العلاقة الزوجية عمقا وجدانيا راسخا في النفس, which will take the relationship to another level. And you're connecting spiritually, you're connecting physically, you're connecting emotionally to so many levels. وبعد هذه المناجاة الجميلة, after this beautiful مناجاة conversation, فإن كان به حاجة الرجل إلى زوجته قضى الرغبة الزوجية الخاصة. If he had an inclination to fulfill those desires which a male has towards the wife and the wife has towards the husband, then he would fulfill these desires. فإذا فرغ من المعاشرة ناولته زوجته خرقة فمسح عن أثر الجماع. After they would finish, they would lovingly hold each other, caress each other, and hold each other close. ومسحت هي عنها, and they would engage in loving interaction. وربما وافق زوجته أيام طمثها. Sometimes if the wife, she was on her period, فلا ينقطع عنها الإسعاد الزوجي. He wouldn't deprive her of the pleasures of marriage. فيصيب منها ما يصيب الزوج من زوجته غير الجماع. He would ask her to wrap her clothing well, and they would engage in foreplay short of intercourse, and they would not engage in intercourse if she was on her periods, but they would engage in foreplay. And this shows the Prophet ﷺ's love for her. وفي ذلك إشعار بالرغبة في الزوجية. This gives the wife the feeling that she is wanted. It's not just about you, but it's about making the wife feel special. This is what the author is saying. The Prophet ﷺ will make sure of this. وأن هذا العارض الطبيعي لا يقطع ألوانا من التواصل الزوجي البهيج. Menstruation is a natural cycle. He wouldn't let this be an impediment in their being close and intimate and loving. Yani, she doesn't become a filthy item after that. He would still be loving and close and intimate with his wives, even in this instance. Yes, he would not have sexual intercourse, but he would engage in foreplay. ومن ذلك حديث أم سلمة رضي الله عنها. The hadith of سلمة رضي الله تعالى is very explicit in this. She says, كنت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في لحافه. I was in bed with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. فوجدت ما تجد النساء من الحيضة. I experienced what a woman experiences from her menstruation. فانسللت من اللحاف. I kind of crept out of bed. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, أنفستي? Are you in menstruation? قلت وجدت ما تجد النساء من الحيضة. She says, I am experiencing that which women experience in terms of menstruation. قال ذلك ما كتب الله على بنات آدم. Why are you panicking for? This is what Allah has written upon the daughters of Adam. It's not something your fault. It's not something you've done wrong. It's not something negative that, oh, no, I need to get out of bed and do what you need to do. Clean yourself up and then come back. قالت فانسللت. So she says, سلمة, I quickly left, did what was necessary. فأصلحت من شأني, I did what was necessary. ثم رجعت, I returned. فقال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet said, تعالي, get in bed. فادخلي معي في اللحاف. Come. And he held her affectionately and held her close. قلت فأدخلني معه في لحافه, and he pulled me close into the bed covers. وكان يغتسل من الجنابة قبل أن ينام. After they would finish the interactions that they would have as a husband and wife have, he would make ghusl. He would make the ritual ablution, the washing, before going to sleep. The Prophet doesn't prefer to sleep in a pure state. وَرُبَّمَا تَوَضَّأَ. Sometimes if he was extremely tired, he would make wudu, at the minimum wudu. With that wudu, you can't perform salah. So obviously, after you've had your interactions with the interactions that a husband and wife have, after that, if you're going to make wudu, that's not going to be okay because you need to make ghusl. But just to clean himself, he would make wudu and he clean his private parts, etc., and make wudu. Wanama, and he would go to sleep. وأخر الغسل لحين استيقاظه, and he would leave the ghusl until he would wake up. وكان يغتسل أحيانا هو وزوجته من إناء واحد. Sometimes they would shower, they would bathe from the same container. from the same container. تختلف أيديهما فيه, yani they would, she would place her hands in and take from the water, and the Prophet also would take from the water because it was a bath type of thing. So they would have turns. تقول, and she would say, and the wife would say, دعلي دعلي, leave some water for me, leave some, and he would say, دعيلي دعيلي, no, you leave some water for me, you leave some water for me. وهذا من المؤانسة, this was their affection. وامتداد اللهو الجميل, their banter with each other, بين الزوجين, between the two partners, the intimate relationship with each other. ثم ينام, then the Prophet would go to sleep. فإذا نام, when he would go to sleep, واستغرق في نومه نفخ. Yani when he would sleep and he would be in deep sleep, you could hear his breathing. His breathing was deep and audible. You could hear it. وإذا تقلب في فراشي من الليل, when he would turn in his bed and whilst he was awake, he would say, لا إله إلا الله الواحد القهار رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما العزيز الغفار. He would be doing dhikr. Dhikr, even when he's going to sleep, yani at the time of sleep, he would engage in dhikr, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وكان لا يتقلب من الليل إلا أجرى السواك على فمه. And like we said, he would not sleep unless he had the miswak with him. ثم يعود إلى نومه إلى أن ينتصف الليل. He would sleep until half of the night, and then he would wake up. ويبدو أن هذه أطول فترة النوم ينامها النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. Everybody say صلى الله عليه وسلم. This, it seems, was the longest period of time the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم would sleep. We'll end it there, inshallah. From next week, ناشئة الليل. After half the night has passed and he slept, what was the rest of his night? When he would wake up, what would he engage in? What would he do? We'll continue that from next week, inshallah. This was our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is there any questions? Anybody have any questions? Yahya Subhan, why did you call it session 7? It's session 7, Yahya, because we've had 6 sessions of this already. This was actually, like I mentioned, November 2018. We actually did the first 6 sessions. And the last, so when we got to the night, I thought to myself, you know what, with the night, what we'll do, we'll have an actual all-nighter where we'll basically go through the night of the Prophet ﷺ and see if we can actually practically live that life, that night of the Prophet ﷺ. And so what I'll do is, in the link, I basically posted the playlist. That playlist, you should see it in your chat right now. That playlist contains all of the videos that we pre-recorded in that. So in that, you've got all the pre-recorded, the playlist. It's all 6 sessions. Those sessions, I used to keep them about 50 minutes long, but this one, now we can digest a bit more. So we went an hour or so. So that's why it's session 7. So is this recorded? Yeah, it's recorded. It'll be accessible on our YouTube as well. The previous sessions also recorded. It's in the places. What point is the half night? And any half night, it was rough. Yani, from Maghrib to Fajr. So the time that you calculate, yani when is the halfway point? So you basically count how many hours, half of that. But again, yani the Prophet ﷺ's habit was this, and we'll discuss after the night of the Prophet ﷺ how he would spend his night and why he would do nisful layl, and he's a certain verse of the Quran which indicate that. But the night itself, how he was spent, yani the main part of the night, you could argue, where he would get up and worship, which we know but he would sleep. He would sleep. Yani there were some companions who came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, I'm going to spend the entire night in worship. I'm never going to sleep and I'm never going to spend time with my wife. Prophet said, no. Even I spend some time in the night with my wives, and I also sleep and I also worship Allah. And so moderation. So the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't teach what some religions teach, which is what's known as a ruhbaniyah, which is yani you don't sleep at all in the night and you entirely spend the night in worship, etc. Apologies if you covered before. When would you have dinner? Dinner was between Maghrib and Isha. Dinner was between Maghrib and Isha. But again, don't try to copy your lifestyle on this. Understand what I'm saying? Don't try and copy your lifestyle on this, because you have to understand timings were different. They used to work different hours. They used to do different hours. So, for example, in our winter months, if you're going to eat after Maghrib, for example, you're going to be eating at 4, 5. That's your evening meal. You understand what I'm saying? So it depends on the kind of sliding scale of the days. The days weren't so drastic back then, but it was generally after Maghrib. I think that will be session 6, Muhammad Bilal. If you check session 6, that will discuss the dinner. But in that playlist that I've sent, that contains everything from session 1 to session 6, everything we've covered from the day of the Prophet ﷺ. Now we're continuing the night of the Prophet ﷺ. There's some really, really beneficial discussions inside, inshallah. So we'll end it there, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to bring into our lives the love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look, one of the most effective ways to bring into life the love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see, we have this method or that method. Somebody says do this, somebody says do that. the best method to get the love of the Prophet ﷺ is to bring the Sunnah in your life. Follow his way. Allah mentions in the Quran. Allah mentions in the Quran that what is it? فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهِ. فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Follow me. And in the Prophet ﷺ, follow my way. يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهِ. Allah will love you. And if Allah loves you, the Prophet ﷺ loves you. And so to gain the love of Allah, we have to gain the love of the Prophet ﷺ. To gain the love of the Prophet ﷺ, we follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather as with the Prophet ﷺ on the day of judgment. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.